Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining me yet again in our reflections that we call Katiba Reflections with me, Charles Nyachae. Today, I would like to reflect on Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, that is the Bill of Rights. As I had the occasion to observe in the first of these podcasts, our constitution, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, is largely informed by and is a product of our history as a country. So the Constitution sought to write many things that the former Constitution had not been able to ensure that the people of Kenya got what they wanted in terms of how they wanted to live with one another as a nation and how they wanted to be governed. The Bill of Rights, Chapter 4 of the Constitution, is one of the best examples of the result of that history and what the people of Kenya, through the framers of the Constitution, thought and felt represents what they need to have constitutionally protected as rights, their rights. Now, the Bill of Rights is, in this Constitution, I dare say, is one of the most effective, expansive, and robust such Bill of Rights in any constitution anywhere in the world. It's really very comprehensive. And therefore, I propose that we reflect on it in more than one podcast. Today, I want to essentially look at the general provisions that relate to the Bill of Rights, and then subsequently we will look at some of the rights themselves. The chapter starts at Article 19. 19.1 declares that the Bill of Rights is an integral part of Kenya's democratic state and is the framework for social, economic, and cultural policies. So it's very fundamental to our constitution. It's very fundamental to our system of governance. 19.2 goes on to state that the purpose of recognizing and protecting human rights and fundamental freedoms is to preserve the dignity of individuals and communities and to promote social justice and the realization of the potential of all human beings. Very importantly, that article, and this is very important for all Kenyans to internalize, that article provides at 19 subarticle 3 that the rights and fundamental freedoms that are provided for in the Bill of Rights belong to each individual and are not granted by the state. That's very important to internalize, that at its most basic, these are rights that accrue to all Kenyans, naturally, God-given rights that are recognized and acknowledged in the Constitution. They are not given by the state. The importance of this, because they are not given by the state cannot take them away, and the state can only mitigate them or reduce the effects of these fundamental rights if that is done in accordance with the Constitution. Article 20 deals with the application of this Bill of Rights and states that it applies to all law and binds all state organs and all persons. And 22, again, very importantly, every person shall enjoy the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights to the greatest extent consistent with the nature of the right and of the fundamental freedom. As we shall see, of course, the nature and character of each of these rights and freedoms varies, but it is important to internalize this, that every person is entitled to enjoy these rights and fundamental freedoms to the greatest extent consistent with that particular right or the nature of that particular right and fundamental freedom. That article also gives mandatory guidance to courts when interpreting the rights and fundamental freedoms, so that all provisions will be interpreted in such a manner that will give effect to the right of fundamental freedom. And so Article 20, Subarticle 3b provides that the courts, in interpreting and applying and enforcing the fundamental rights and freedoms, will adopt the interpretation that most favors the enforcement of a right or a fundamental freedom. So that if a court is looking at applying a right or a fundamental freedom and is looking at possible options of interpretation, it is bound by the Constitution to adopt that interpretation that most favors the enforcement in favor of the person who seeks who claims the right or the fundamental freedom. Article 20, again, still dealing with application of the Bill of Rights, provides that because there are certain rights that require action on the part of the state, and that action may require, for example, the state to expend resources in order to allow or facilitate the people or the individuals or the citizens to fully enjoy the rights that are declared in the Bill of Rights. The Constitution again gives mandatory guidance to the state in Subarticle 5 of Article 20, where it provides that in applying any right under Article 43, and I want to dwell a little bit on Article 43, which is within the Bill of Rights, in applying any right which is under Article 43, Article 43 is about socioeconomic rights, and we'll look at it in a minute. If the state claims that it does not have the resources to implement the rights, a court, tribunal, or other authority shall be guided by the following principles. One, it is the responsibility of the state to show that the resources are not available. So it's not the responsibility of the citizen. The citizen has a right, the state has an obligation, and if the issue that the state has is one that is related to resources to enable the state to facilitate that particular right, then it is the state to demonstrate that the resources are not available. It goes on to provide that in allocating resources, the state shall give priority to ensuring the widest possible enjoyment of the right or fundamental freedom, having regard to prevailing circumstances, including the vulnerability of particular groups or individuals. We are still talking about the socioeconomic rights under Article 43 of the Constitution. And there's a further provision that the court, tribunal, or other authority may not interfere with a decision by a state organ concerning the allocation of available resources solely on the basis that it would have reached a different conclusion. So the court, in that situation where the state says it is not able to facilitate the enjoyment of the particular right under Article 43, the court will make an objective consideration, and the state has to demonstrate that it has given priority in terms of providing the resources, but it has not been able to. But the court will not simply interfere with that decision on the basis that the court, if it was the one allocating the resources, would have arrived at a different result in terms of the allocation of resources to facilitate that particular enjoyment of that particular right. Now, what is Article 43 about? Before I look at what the provisions of Article 43 are, I reflect on what is stated in Article 21, Sub-Article 2, that the state shall take legislative, policy, and other measures, including the setting of standards, to achieve the progressive realization of the rights guaranteed under Article 43. Now, I personally consider Article 43 from the perspective of the ordinary Kenyan. I consider Article 43 to be one of the most important provisions of this constitution in terms of what rights it gives to the individual Kenyan. And I will probably convey this best by just reading out what Article 43 provides. It provides that every person has the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to healthcare services, including reproductive health care. That's the first socioeconomic right under Article 43. B, to accessible and adequate housing and to reasonable standards of sanitation. C, to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable quality. D, to clean and safe water in adequate quantities. E, to social security. And F, to education. Now, these are the fundamentals that touch on every individual Kenyan, and that is why I say that this is one of the most significant provisions in the Constitution, to the extent that it declares that these are rights that every Kenyan is entitled to. That in mind, and we go back to Article 21, which I read a minute ago, and 21.2, which provides that the state shall take legislative, policy, and other measures, including the setting of standards, to achieve the progressive realization of the rights guaranteed under Article 3. So those rights that I've just read out in Article 43, the state is required by the Constitution in mandatory terms to make progressive provision for the progressive realization of those rights. The framers of the Constitution, obviously, by talking about progressive realization, took into account the fact or the nature of Kenya as a country, its economy, and the fact is that it would be probably unrealistic to expect that those rights can be guaranteed in an instant or overnight, and hence the reference to progressive realization. Because these are reflections, the concern that I would have is that 13 years down the line from the time the Constitution was adopted, promulgated, to me at least, it's not very clear that the state has put in place and communicated to Kenyans the programs and policies that would ensure that within over a specific period and within a specific time frame, the rights that are spelled out in Article 43 would actually be guaranteed to the people of Kenya. So that is, I think, something that attention needs to be paid to that, to ensure that even if Article 21 talks about progressive realization, the expectation is that there should be an identifiable time-bound policy and program to demonstrate that the state is progressively ensuring the realization of those rights in accordance with the obligations that it has under the combined reading of Articles 21 and 43. Let me also just make reference to Sabbaticals 2 and 3 of Article 43. That Sabbatical 2, a person shall not be denied emergency medical treatment. That's a constitutional provision. And number 3, Sabbatical 3, the state shall provide appropriate social security to persons who are unable to support themselves and their dependents. Those are very specific and very robust provisions under Article 43 in the Bill of Rights. And we can individually or collectively reflect to ask the question whether the state in the last 13 years has been able to ensure that those two sabbaticals are abided with. Going back to the general provisions that relate to the rights and fundamental freedoms, let me just reflect a little on the limitation. The Constitution does provide for limitation of rights and fundamental freedoms, and also deals with those that may not be limited. Now, there's under Article 24, there's a fairly detailed provision as to how and to what extent rights and fundamental freedoms under the Bill of Rights may be limited. But the basic principle in 24.1 is that a right or fundamental freedom in the Bill of Rights shall not be limited except by law, and then only to the extent that the limitation is reasonable and justifiable in an open and democratic society based on human dignity, equality, and freedom, taking into account all relevant factors, including the nature of the right of fundamental freedom, the importance of the purpose of the limitation, the nature and extent of the limitation, and the need to ensure that the enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and fundamental freedoms of others. The Constitution itself, in the same Article 24 at Sabbatical 5, creates certain limitations, specifically related to people or Kenyans who serve in the Kenya Defense Forces or the National Police Service. In that, it says that the state may create legislation that may limit the application of the rights or fundamental freedoms in the following provisions to persons serving in the Kenya Defense Forces or the National Police Service. Now, those areas that legislation may limit fundamental freedoms of those two categories of people, those serving in the Defense Forces or in the National Police Service, are Article 31, the right to privacy, Article 36, freedom of association, Article 37, assembly, demonstration, picketing, and petition, Article 41, labor relations, Article 43, the economic and social rights, and Article 49, the right of arrested persons. In all those categories of rights and fundamental persons, the Constitution allows that legislation may create a limitation. And I think the reasons are self-evident. It would be a little bit chaotic if, for example, people working in the National Police Service or in the Kenya Defense Forces were to claim a right to, demonstrate or a right to picket. So I think for those categories, the basis of the limitations are self-evident. Finally, there is a category of fundamental rights and freedoms that may not, under Article 25, and may not under any circumstances be limited. And 25 reads, despite any other provisions in this Constitution, the following rights and fundamental freedoms shall not be limited. A, freedom from torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. B, freedom from slavery or servitude. C, the right to a fair trial. And D, the right to an order of habeas corpus. So those that are listed under Article 25, the state or parliament cannot legislate to limit those particular fundamental freedoms, as it can, and in respect of any other rights or fundamental freedoms, subject to the provisions that are provided for in the Constitution that I referred to earlier. So those are the general provisions that relate to the Bill of Rights. For today, I will leave it there. The next time that we reflect, we will now look at some of the other rights and fundamental freedoms that are dealt with under the Bill of Rights. So I thank you and look forward to the next session when we can continue with our reflections, our Katiba reflections, and specifically at the moment on reflections on Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Thank you very much.